Okay, well, we'll get the meeting going. Those who are in the audience here, sign in at the podium, and all those on Zoom, let Donna know who you are for the record. Stand to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands. Okay, approval of the agenda. I believe our clerk has some addition.
Yeah, so this morning, Tess requested 2 additions to the consent agenda. The first is to confirm the change of employment status of Helen Olson from probationary to regular effective March 25th, 2023. The second, so that'd be number 2. Number 3 on consent agenda would be confirm the change of employment status of Nicole Carl from probationary to regular effective March 29th, 2023.
Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to approve with the additions.
I'll move. Second.
Your discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Minutes of the previous meeting last Tuesday morning, the 28th. Greg, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. At this time, we have it open for public comment. Anybody wish to address the board with public comment? Please step forward, identify yourself, and be at the front here so it can be recorded. Anybody wish for public comment? Public comment?
Anybody on this?
Yes, on the screen. Thank you. Anybody on Zoom wish to address for public comment?
Commissioners, can I just interrupt for a second? Whoever is on with the iPad, can you state your name, please, for the record? The iPad, can you please state your name, please?
They're muted. Do you have to unmute them?
No.
iPhone hasn't identified yet either, I believe.
Okay, iPad, can you please state your name, please?
Still muted?
No, I unmuted them, but they muted themselves because,
Okay.
Mark has.
okay, let's go to WS. Can you please state your name, please? WS?
Okay. Mark, about Mark?
Mark, can you please state your name, please? For the record?
Okay, moving on. Being no public comment, we had no appointments. Moving on to consent agenda, we had 3 items, 2 additions this morning. Desire of the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Adding the second one with the change of Helen Olson from probationary to regular and Nicole Carl from probationary to regular.
Motion made. Is there a second? I'll second it. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Next, under action items, consider approval of LG 220 application for exempt permit off-site gambling on behalf of District 300 Foundation of PO Box 34, La Crescent, Minnesota, for gambling activities to be conducted at the Valley High Golf Club located at 9203 Mountain Prairie Drive, Houston, Minnesota, in Mountain Prairie Township, be held on April 28th. They request no waiting period. Donna, can you fill us in on that, please?
Yes, Commissioners, District 3 Foundation has requested this gambling permit with no waiting period. They will have a fundraiser at the Valley High Golf Club for the school. The District 300 School Association or Foundation, I should say. And we've done this pretty much every year.
Everything seems to be in order.
Yep, they have the certificate of good standing. Everything is all there that they need. Township is approved.
Very good.
So how
I
come,
make a motion to accept the application for exempt permit for offsite gambling for District 300 Foundation.
Okay, is there a second?
one question.
Greg is seconding. Questions?
So item number one is the consideration of the approval of LG 220 application. Item two is consider approving resolution 2310 Minnesota Lawful Lake Gambling permit approval for District 300. How come? Why do we have one and two? Isn't that a duplication?
Well, it's really, I think it really almost should have been together, but Allison just put them on the agenda as separate. But it's the same thing.
Well, one has a resolution number attached to it where the first one did not.
Correct.
They do go together.
It'll be in my motion to include action item number 2 to include the resolution number 2310.
Is that acceptable? It's not acceptable. Okay, so we got those two together then. Further discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Number 3 is consider ARPA funding for the 2023 technology replacement, Mr. Penelope, for the Department of Human Services. Anything we need to look at? I see there's a change in amount from budgeted to what it's costing with the price increase.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So this is something we've talked about a little bit at the Community Services Committee. We included an item for $31,330 for the replacement of technology. And there was discussion at that committee that we bring that forward as a potential ARPA cost or expenditure. So it's in the budget for $31,330. When I talked to Andy to get current pricing, of course, current pricing went up. And so there were also some components as far as cabling and different things that were not included in the original bid that we used to build the budget. Primarily what the question is today is if you're, as a board, willing to cover that with ARPA funds. If not, we will likely dial back a bit, focus on the computer replacement. This has a lot of old monitors that are built in. And so in working with Andy and IT, that was something we thought was potential to get ahead of that. So that's what I got. I'm sorry, say again.
31,000 in your budget.
Correct, 31,330.
So what's the cost?
The difference, well, the total with the new bid, or I don't know, the new numbers is 42,000 is $83.47.
So we're looking for roughly give or take 10,000 in ARPA money.
No, I think the idea was that we would use ARPA funds for the tech expenditure, the tech replacement. So when we built it into the budget, we didn't build the revenue side of it because the board hadn't approved the ARPA funds for that expenditure. So we got the
31,000 in the budget,
it is on the expenditure side, but there's no
not
revenue.
an ARPA item.
Correct.
This would be an additional almost $10,000 of ARPA monies to make it balance.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it would be, what I was gonna come to the board with was the 31,330. And we had talked about it at the committee to have ARPA consider using ARPA funds to fund that. And so we talked about it again recently, and I said, should I get the current pricing? I did that. There was a few components that weren't included in that initial pricing that we used to build the budget in summer. Plus, there was some pretty significant increases. So the total cost for the technology replacement, including the replacement of a good number of monitors, is $42,083.47. So my request would be, does the board want to use ARPA funds to cover that expense?
So what Bob and I just asked is not what we're thinking, is that you got budgeted 30-some thousand.
Correct.
But it's 42,000. So then you're not asking just for the 10,000, you're asking for the whole.
Correct. My plan was to come to the board and ask for ARPA funds for tech replacement. We built the expense side into the budget, but the board hadn't approved that as a ARPA expenditure. So my plan would have been to come forward with that 31,000. We got the updated pricing. That's the additional figure. Is that, since we built the budget in the
No,
summer?
I understand what you're saying. So.
Okay.
We got to decide if that's what we want to use. We want to use, so if we don't use your budgeted item number, what's gonna do?
I will probably purchase less monitors. We're still going to try to replace the computers because they're due to be replaced. And it would be part of our budget, but I was going to ask to have this expenditure offset with ARPA. That was our plan all along.
That's true.
As I recall, last year, I think last fall, we were talking about ARPA funds in different areas be utilized, and there was a three different colored, like, you know, saying this is already spent, this is what's planned or anticipated, and so on. If I recall, right, I think we talked about using ARPA funds for some of this, along with the utilization of rooms and stuff like that, so. I think we talked a little bit about it, but I don't think we had all the numbers set in place at the time.
Right. It wasn't, this part wasn't approved in our previous discussions for our use of our money.
Correct.
We've
You haven't
already used some of that technology here, so.
Right. You used ARPA funds to upgrade our child-friendly room recording equipment and that. So that was something that was done in the past year.
I guess myself, I'm a little uncomfortable at doing additional ARPA money, something that we haven't discussed. Because we're getting to the end of it and we need to set aside money for childcare stuff that we talked about, what we might want to do with that. I believe there's another item talking about too for capital expenditures, so. I guess I would like to see, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, he's got budgeted 30-some thousand. Need another 10 to finish it out or whatever to purchase it.
It would be a worthwhile expenditure using ARPA dollars for this, because there's a benefit as far as the department, as far as human services are concerned. The ARPA funds that we have right now, I mean, we've got the 300,000 set aside for child care. We've got the 200,000 set aside for the parking lot, or 250,000, which is going to end up more like 300,000. But after all is said and done, we still had a reserve of 350,000 of unused ARPA, 200,000
Carol had
unallocated ARPA.
unallocated.
The childcare hasn't been allocated yet.
And I think we
And just,
went back and forth on the parking lot situation too, so I guess I'd like to know exactly where we're at on that.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten the billing for the restrooms downstairs. You know,
Right,
there
right.
are variables yet in our ARPA funding allocation.
Could we table this until we get a handle on the amount? Is that?
This isn't an urgent matter. So
Okay,
it was in our 2023 budget. And I was just, this was the plan. We had built the computer replacement. And then with the consideration of using ARPA, I thought we could look at these aging monitors as well. So, but it isn't an urgent matter. It isn't like we got to do this week.
I move that we table it until we get a better handle on our balance on our ARPA funds. And we can come back and revisit.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Discussion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Thank you.
Would you like me to work
Couple
with
weeks,
Carol?
then?
Just to
Go ahead,
kind of, would you like me to work with Carol just to kind of find out once you figure that out? Because I think something like this, it slips my mind and then I bring it back. So just work with her to kind of decide when you've come up with what you're doing with or an accounting of where you're at with our.
So we have some numbers in the
Perfect.
permit.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, consider moratorium on the sale of edible cannabinoid products and or hemp derived THC food and beverages within the county of Houston. A little bit of history on this. Of course, this is something that's came upon this last summer, less than a year ago. Some issues came up last fall, brought to our attention of the some of the candies being very much looking like regular candy. In fact, that example of a cannabinoid and a piece of candy side by side in Ziplocs, hard to tell between the two. Some concerns as to the strength of some of the products that are in our county, and a lot of discussion about it. There was discussion about maybe having a moratorium to take a deep breath and move back. We had a public hearing to get input from the public. And we heard both sides of the issue quite well. Since then, and in my personal maneuvers with people and talking with people throughout the county, I have not had a big outcry for wanting a moratorium. With all the information I have and some discussion with our legal counsel, I at this time make a motion not to establish a moratorium, but to direct our county attorney to present some type of regulation as to how, where, and when product would be sold. To be included in that would be gummies, CBD, other THC products. It may include, but not limited to, licensing, taxing, and enforcement of said ordinance. That's my motion. Is there a second?
Can you restate that motion again?
Move to not establish a moratorium, but to direct our county attorney to present regulation as to how, where, and when the sale of gummies, CBD, and other THC products may be sold, may include but not limited to licensing, taxing, enforcement of said ordinance.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
With the understanding. Were we gonna have a committee to look at this or just have Sam put something together and say, here it is?
I agree with the motion because I think we should just have Sam look at this, give him 30 to 45 days to come up with an ordinance. And in the meantime, with the bill that's going through legislation now on the cannabis, we can hopefully, if we have any local control at all, which we might not, we could work that into it as well. So, I mean, our main concern here and how this all got started with our joint Board of Health meetings was our concern is how the packaging of the edible gummies were appealing to kids with likeness of candy, like Dewey brought up, looking like real candy. And so it was a public health and safety and welfare of this, of our citizens in the county, and that's why we did what we did. And I think the purpose that we did it, it may not have been perfect, obviously, but I think it brought attention to the problem and our concerns. And we've heard from both sides after the meeting. I got a lot of calls on the subject. So it's woken people up, and I think it's a good thing. So I just think it would be more efficient to have our county attorney look into it. And there's other ordinances out there that's been passed in the city of Caledonia. Harmony has passed one. Fillmore County is doing the same thing. They've moved away from the moratorium, and they created a study committee to look into it, so we could follow along and see what they're doing and mirror similar ordinance. So Sam, you want to bring something up?
Go ahead.
I can just address, I think I could get it.
I'm a little close.
I'm sure I could, I would, kind of like where we go back, where we started with this, I would work with Fillmore County. And to make sure that, trying to track with them what they're doing, but also what the state's doing. That I think this legislative session ends on May 22nd. I think that has to end unless it's extended. As you've indicated here, time, place, manner is what we would have control over. There seems to be a little bit of a reach into more than usual on local control on this. So that's sort of the hesitancy as far as moving forward right now. I know there are some ordinances that, for example, the licenses, that the cost of the license to sell these products, cities have set it somewhat higher, and then there's been feedback from the state that's probably not, it's too high. And so I think we could get a good framework going. And so as soon as we either have the final bill from the state, or perhaps even if we don't have that, depending on the situation and what the board wants to do, we can always come back. We can amend an ordinance. We've done it from time to time in different ordinances. We have land use if something would change. But I do think I can get something for the board to take a look at, whether it be any appropriate committee that the board has, or public health, or perhaps at a work session. And then once we have this ordinance, again, like we did with the proposed moratorium, we'd have to have a public hearing and have the notice like we did on the moratorium, proposed moratorium. So I think we can get to where the board wants. It's just that, now we'll have a little bit more input from other cities and municipalities and counties that have moved forward already.
So ordinance in Caledonia, we can't override.
Well, the answer to that would be is that they can do more, they can be more restrictive, but they can't be less restrictive. So that's just a general, in the same way with the state passing their authority to us, is that we can be more restrictive, but we can't be less. But then using that as your model or framework is that we, under certain conditions, have always had the authority to say pass a moratorium. But from what you're reading in these proposed bills is the state will take that away from us regarding this issue. And so that's what's somewhat of the uncertainty of what we think we normally have for abilities to legislate as a county board. That's somewhat in a flux here with the current substances we're talking about regulating.
And in reading the proposed bill, some of that's uncertain on which way that they're going to go for how we would set any type of ordinance, correct?
Correct. And so that's the thing. I think, like I said, I think we can get, there's what is this saying is that there's a lot of shooting, but there's no aiming at this point.
Well, it's like watching sausage being made.
Yeah.
There's adding amendments to the bill in the Senate right now. Whether they get in the final vote, who knows? It could all be thrown out. We don't know. So until you know,
May 22nd.
right, right. And then that's for the cannabis part of it, legalization of cannabis. This other, what we were discussing was what they passed last July.
Exactly.
And the problem that arose with that is that they passed something, there was some very little guidance or any local control stipulations in there or anything or enforcement. So basically it's all up to the Board of Pharmacy. So
And that goes to the issue that is that there's certain things to civil regulatory that the Board of Pharmacy does that's really outside of our control as a county board to regulate some of that stuff. It's more of ours is just time, place, and manner of the products that have been approved by, a regulatory agency.
right, and since then, there's been other counties, municipalities that have enacted ordinances, and we can see what they've been doing and see what we can follow up in the same fashion.
Mr. Burns.
My only question was, we're putting all of this on Sam. You mentioned Fillmore County, they've got a committee that's looking at it, so we would have outside input from other people besides just Sam. That's my only issue here as far as if we have other people involved with the decision making on how we come up with an ordinance, what our ordinance is. Given the fact that when the state gets done, we might have to throw our ordinance out anyways. But
Right, so then
right now we're putting it
why
on Sam.
are we creating a study committee when we don't really know in the end if this is all gonna be a moot point anyway? It would be more beneficial and more efficient and Sam, no offense here, that's what you get paid the big bucks for.
Well, and I guess the Commissioner Myrie hits on it and answers, I think, Commissioner Burns's question there is that I can come up with the framework within that time period. Hopefully, we're getting to the end of some crystallization of that bill at the state level. And then if we do, the appropriate committees within our structure here is the local government could take a look at it. Certainly the board can have work sessions, but then we're going to have we'll have to have that public notice and a public hearing again. And much like you did at the moratorium, if there are things that come out, issues that can come out, we can always, we don't have to pass something right away. We can take a time, and if we need to, if this process comes up with some issues that need to be studied, then we could have a study committee at that point.
Yeah. And in the end, we're gonna have another public hearing to enact the ordinance if we have one.
Exactly.
Do you have a time frame that, looking in your crystal ball at all, of when you would have anything like that? Because you're looking at 2.5 months before the legislation session, and I mean, it's kind of hurry up and wait almost.
Well, and my thought is I think maybe I would try to take a look at the landscape and try to get some of the low hanging fruit when we get a form of things that seem to be here that are going to be our control. As far as the licensing of certain things, maybe we leave the amount of license open because we need that input and guidance from the state. But or what say maybe what time that these things could be sold, things like that. We probably can get some of that. But again, it's, like I said, I can give you a framework on it. And like you said, there's no crystal ball. We have that time. Now we can go forward and pass something. We always have that option, but then we would have to amend it, which is, that happens again, like indicated in ordinances, they get amended from time to time because things change.
We're going to do an ordinance, shouldn't we work with the planning?
Well, and again, I think that would be one of the committees that you would certainly consider partners at the table when we take a look at this. Public health, certainly zoning, because they have expertise in that, and whatever else the board would want to consider having take a look at it.
We did have a lot of people express at our meeting, public hearing, that wanted to be part of it. And some of them were well-educated and running legitimate shops with a lot of background.
And I had asked a couple of those if they would be interested, but giving more thought on this, I just feel it'd be more clean and Sam's office would be willing to do this. I think it'd be just a cleaner thing that we could do and follow what some of these cities and counties are doing.
Well, then their input would come when there's a public hearing.
Exactly.
Right,
And
they
when we
will
have
have
the-
that opportunity.
Yeah, they'll have that opportunity to speak at the public hearing and our final product that before us.
And those can attend the meetings and see where
Right.
we're at with it.
Correct, yep.
It's not gonna happen overnight. I
Nope.
don't know how that works.
Well, no, and the thing is too, is that you could have your public hearing if there was a particular issue that the board feels it needs more study, then, you know, they go, again, you could always put together a study committee or direct it back to whatever committee that exists within local government to take a look at.
Okay, any other questions, discussion?
Can you repeat the motion?
Okay. I move to not establish a moratorium, but to direct our county attorney to present some regulation as to where, when, and how the sale of gummies, CBD, and other THC products would be sold. It may include, but not limited to, licensing, taxing, enforcement of the said ordinance. Okay, I'd like a roll call vote on this, please.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
I'll abstain.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. We'll keep in touch. Anything else under actions? There being none. We move on to, before discussion, any closing comment this time? Any closing comment? Also, Donna, do you want to get some names of some of the folks on Zoom for the record?
Yes, I'm just missing a couple of them. WS. Can you please state your name for the record?
Come on.
Okay, Samsung.
Yeah, it looks like
He left the building too.
Oh, they left too. Okay,
okay.
and iPad probably left as well.
Everybody else you have.
Yep, everybody else I have.
Very good, thank you. Any public closing comment? Any closing comment? Yes, name and address, please.
Nick Miners, 19139 Schutz Road, Caledonia. I think you guys are making the right move here, and with the new bill going through, I just hope you're not wasting too much of Sam's time, you know, with the uncertainty coming up. With the new bill there, it does cover a lot of you guys' concerns as far as the packaging and a lot of that stuff. And then you guys will have control over the time and the place where it can be sold, so. Just, I encourage you not to waste too much time and too much taxpayer money, so that's about it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? No other public comment. We move on to discussion items. I guess I'll start here. One of the things is I did receive a letter from Sheriff Sweatberg commenting to the notice of cancellation of the joint powers agreement between us and Winona County. I can read it in detail, but basically for the last few years, we have provided jail facilities for Winona County on their overflow. And basically the last day of the JPA will be in operation would be September 31st, 2023. That'll be the end of our contract with them. Then they're gonna be utilizing their own jail, so that's copy here available. I can send it to everybody if they wish to have it, but it's,
Can you send that to them, being them on the jail study committee?
yeah, well, I can send that out, okay? And then EDA met last week. I think Commissioner Johnson can probably give more information on that. That was a lot of good information on that. Today at 11 o'clock, the park committee is going to be available for those who are interested in operation of Wildcat Park, the campground, to answer information, questions, or concerns that we can get going on that. We want to have things up and running before the season starts, so that'll be an informational meeting, answering questions. Is anything else on Donna you wish to say that I just cover it right?
No, I think just whoever's interested, will hopefully either come or we'll have it on Zoom as well. So if you can't make it in person, they
Okay.
can get on Zoom.
That'll be 11 o'clock this morning. Okay,
Correct.
and I got a couple of meetings. I got a Thursday meeting with WDI. That's about it for me. Mr. Johnson?
Just a question for you, do we?
Yep.
So you got a public hearing coming up for the no wake zone?
Yes, I'll be 29th of March in La Crescent for public input on the study. We got some numbers, we got some clearance from, well, I shouldn't say clearance, but there's no objection any longer from La Crosse County. DNR has signed off. There's Marty here. Basically, we're at a point of coming up with a ordinance, public hearing, and then we'll be bringing it to the board if we have information provided. But that's the 29th.
Mhm.
Yep. Anything else?
Well, there was a public hearing, of course, we did that. Our EDA meeting, we didn't really discuss any something new, except, I refer to Allison. You want to talk on that?
Yep, I'll just throw out a quick reminder that tomorrow is our big Bluff Country Collaborative Career and Hiring event at the La Crescent Area Event Center. It's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're expecting 40 businesses and over 200 students. All students in the Bluff Country Collaborative or all schools in the Bluff Country Collaborative are participating, and then it's also open to the public. So employers are mostly from Houston and Fillmore County, and they will be looking to hire full, part-time, and seasonal workers. So you're welcome to stop by and say hi if you're in the area.
Thank you. Yesterday we had a personnel committee meeting, and we discussed the work from home policy, and we need to read. I think bring more about that to at our next meeting. Regular meeting. So there'll be some more stuff forthcoming on that. That's all I got, basically.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns?
Yes, last night I went to a Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Board meeting. And a bit of discussion about hiring policies, services being provided, preparing for the end of the emergency status, the COVID emergency status, which is going to change quite a few things for them as far as applications and people having qualified for services. So they're gearing up to that, as is also our Health and Human Services Department here with the new requirements as far as registering for services and whatnot that everybody's going to have to do that they haven't done for the last 2.5 years. So there's going to be a substantial increase in workload. I do plan on going over to the job fair tomorrow in La Crescent just to see the businesses involved and make a tour through what's going on. So I plan on doing that in the morning. That's all I've got.
Commissioner Schultz?
The last Friday, I attended the land use LiDAR demonstration. It was interesting 2 hours.
Was that the one over in Mankato?
No, they held it here.
Oh, okay.
Here
What,
downstairs.
Eric Schmidt
Yep.
organized.
Well, that stuff can really do stuff now. Technology is sure,
Gotta be
sure
careful.
changed that so they're working on the plan with for Houston County for the zoning and the other departments, River Soil, that's gonna be utilizing it. They're coming along pretty good, but they're not quite done with the complete program yet. You get a chance to see a demo on it, it's definitely worth looking at. And then we go, I think, got a letter from Goodhue County about some river cleanup, just a little bit on that. I was gonna reach out if you want me to her. They were looking for us to participate as a county in the river cleanup and send a photo that's going on in our historical boathouse area down there with my family owns boathouse down there. We have a group called CARP, concerned about river people, and we participate in the annual river cleanup that Ken Visker heads up and sends information out. So if you want, I can coordinate with Linda that Houston County does participate in that and have them send a couple photos that we're in that program as
You
well.
coordinate that with lacrosse when they do their big ones?
Usually they do. It's usually the same weekend
Same
coming
weekend.
up.
Okay.
Ken
Good.
actually just emailed something out last week on it. So if you want, I can reach out to her for our group.
That'd be good.
River cleanup.
Other than that, I did get a few calls from some concerned people that had reservations down at Wildcat, and I referred them to try and reach out to you folks on the Parks Committee that were concerned that had reservations that they don't know if are gonna be honored or not. Some of them might have been verbal, so there's, you might have some homework to do. They wanted me to bring
Okay.
attentions. That's all I've got.
We'll look at that book that he has.
Hopefully he's got a book.
We'll see what we can do to help. Yep. Thanks for that heads up. Okay, Commissioner Meyer.
I just had the personnel and Eric talked about that, so still working on an airport deal. Hopefully next week we can get rolling on that. Outside of that, I don't have much.
Very good. Anything else for the good of the cause? Anything else?
World record.
Almost there, yeah. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Thank you all.